After the revolution is done, is there going to be a firearms training and a requirement to basically learn the history of what happened and doing something that prevents it from ever happening again? Because you guys are having your own Holocaust over there.
Right. So you're talking about our education policy
Yeah.
and also
Measures
whether
that
people.
prevent this from happening again. Don't demolish them, don't do anything, and just have tours every year to Poland, to Germany, to Austria to visit those camps as a living proof that it actually happened. Same thing with the October 7th. They left those kibbutzes alone, they left those buildings alone, and they basically have tours of journalists to go there and witness what happened physically. Are you guys going to have something like that? And are you guys
All
going
right.
to
So,
have physical firearms in the civilian hands?
all right. So let me answer now, if I may. Okay. So first of all, like I obviously can't speak for the future of Iran. Okay, like what happens in Iran is going to be determined from based on the politicians that we elect, right, in a democratic system. With regards to firearms, whether we're going to have something like the Second Amendment, whether Iranian people are going to be allowed to own weapons or not. I don't know where that is going to go. Is also with regards to the education policy, again, that's going to be determined based on who are the people that we elect in our parliament and also based on the people we elect to write our constitution. So I am almost sure, if I had to guess, that we are going to have the same, just like we have Holocaust memorials. I'm pretty sure the Iranian people are going to have a lot of memorials and remembrance ceremonies every year for what happened during the massacre of January 8th and January 9th. I'm pretty sure their names are going to be on walls. I'm pretty sure their pictures are going to be everywhere as heroes. I'm pretty sure the stories are going to be told for decades and decades and decades. I'm pretty sure the history of what happened, and not just what happened on January 8th and January 9th, the history of our fight against the Islamic Republic for the past 47 years is going to be part of our education system. I'm pretty sure not only that, the history of Reza Shah and Muhammad Reza Shah, the proper history of them, is going to be part of our education system. I'm pretty sure our ancient history properly is now going to be taught in our education system. I'm pretty sure many are we going to have so many cultural programs regarding our ancient history, our culture, the continuation of Muhammad Reza Shah's attempt to reintroduce Iranians to their ancient identity and history is going to now come back with full force. And this time, the whole country is going to, the vast majority of the country is going to be behind it, unlike when Muhammad Reza Shah was doing this against the wishes of many of the mullahs and the leftists in Iran. This time, the whole country is going to be behind it. So I'm pretty sure on that front, we're going to, like, if I had to guess again, I can't speak for all of Iran, but if I had to guess, I think we're going to go full force on that front, when it comes to it's going to be basically very similar to how Jews remember the Holocaust and the lessons that they learned from that and the education regarding that in their school. So I think that's what you could expect in Iran. With regards to firearms, I honestly I don't know which way we're gonna go. I see a lot of Iranians after the experience they have with the Islamic Republic very much in favor of something like the Second Amendment. However, I also see a lot of people arguing that the country is unstable in the first couple of years, and that's going to cause maybe chaos. I don't know which side is correct. I just know that that's going to be determined. So for that, I am actually less clear which side the country is going to come down on, whether we're going to be armed, not armed. I do think that maybe for the initial few years at least, because we need to give monopoly of being armed to the central government, just so that we have less chaos. and then maybe after we get to a stable point, maybe we could talk about whether the people should be armed or not. But I don't know. I mean, I think guys, being armed for Americans make a lot of sense. We don't know if this is makes sense in other countries as well. We have to see. It does. I do really believe it makes sense in America, right? A lot of countries, democracies depends on America being the world superpower. So there is no superpower be above America to make sure America remains a democracy. That's why we need to arm American citizens to make sure America also remains a democracy. For many other countries, being a democracy makes sense because it's easier to trade with democracies. Democracies are more stable, democracies are more prosperous, they have freer markets, and therefore they grow faster and they're easy to be allies with America. So as long as America is a democracy, that creates a lot big motivation for other countries to either be a democracy or move towards being a democracy. So, but for America, we don't have anything like that. That's why Americans need to be armed. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense for Iran or not. I'm open to both sides. Does that answer your question, Alex? All right. So Danny.
Next on the list, I have Jeffrey. He raised his hand a bunch of times, but I'm not sure if he wanted to speak or just
Mm.
respond.
Oh, do you want to speak to this, Jeffrey?
Oh, well, I was just gonna say real quick to Susanna Mc, I can't pronounce her last name. Check your messages.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Send up the chain.
All right. In that case, I have Richard next.
Hi, thanks a lot. So I just wanted to bring something to your attention, Armin, and definitely to Jeffrey. If you've read President Trump's book, The Art of the Deal, he talks a lot about negotiation with parties that are known not to be credible and the techniques that you use. I think if you think back to the 12-day war and you look at the extreme obfuscation that Trump used, basically using the perceived negotiations more as a weapon to confuse the enemy, even going so far as to creating artificial tension with Israel to sort of throw them off the scent as to the cooperation we were doing. I can see you agree. This actually relates back to another book I love. It's the Art of War by Sun Tzu. He talks a lot about using the carrot of negotiation with an enemy known not to be trustworthy as a means to confuse them. I think it's entirely possible, I don't know if you'd agree, that this entire smokescreen of last minute negotiations with the Islamic Republic over their nuclear program is simply another, sleight of hand. That you love Trump or hate him, he is the master of the diplomatic sleight of hand. If you heard that last part.
So Richard, I have a question. Like, first of all, sorry, did I cut you off?
The Trump was the master of the diplomatic sleight of hand, love him or hate him.
So, based on what you're saying, do you think it's true, it's accurate to say that, you know, how we expected Americans to attack shortly after the massacre on January 8th and January 9th, and
Yeah.
everybody expected them to attack, and it didn't happen? Do you think so? A lot of people now are saying that the whole point of that was for the Islamic Republic to move assets, to move money, to basically prepare their air defense, to make all the communications that they need to do, thinking that the attack is imminent. And while they were doing that, the Americans and the Israeli collected a lot of information regarding how they, what would they do, and where all their assets are, and where all the key people are, and what all the communication lines are, and what is their defense mechanism when the attack happens. And now, when the attack does happen, all of that information is very useful to Americans. And these are strategies and methods that cannot be easily changed. So, do you think
Yeah.
that making it seem like they're going to attack was a method by the Trump administration to collect all of that information?
I certainly wouldn't put it past him. And I think that argument is reinforced by the actions they took immediately after the aborted attack to basically create the perception that it was stopped by local Arab powers or even by Israel because they didn't think it was going to be. It certainly is pretty suspicious. But I would like to say that if that attack did happen, on after January 9th. It would be the only time in Trump's entire, I guess, 5-year presidency now that an attack occurred when it was expected. Trump's attacks never occur when they're expected. Again, that sleight of hand technique is very useful. He's caught every single enemy by surprise. Always keep, taking the bait, so to speak. I don't know what's going on inside of his head, but he often plays against expectations, or by knowing what the enemy expects, he uses that, to the advantage of his strategy.
That makes sense. Okay, that's very interesting. I'm going to mention that in the show. Thank you, Richard.
Anytime.
So awesome point by Richard. It was a really awesome point that he brought up, and I saw that Jeffrey liked that a lot too. I have some news relating to that from Reuters here. I'm not sure if you guys have heard the news about Friday yet.
No, go ahead.
So Steve Witkoff, which has been, for those of you that follow diplomatic efforts by the Trump administration, he's been kind of the point man. He's going to be meeting with Abbas Araghchi on Friday in Turkey.
Yes. I mentioned that.
But to Richard's point, we very well could be looking at the same exact pump fake type of strategy here with the negotiations. In fact, I think that's what we're looking at.
So let me actually mention what I said in the show. So here's the thing, that those negotiations might actually be serious. And again, I'm not against them, because anything that the Islamic Republic gives up right now is basically going to defang them more before the attack happens, right? It used to be, like I mentioned, that the more you negotiate with the Islamic Republic, like the way Obama and Biden did, it benefited the Islamic Republic because it would have just bought them time to rebuild and recover and basically get stronger, right? But now the negotiations used to be a tactic for the Islamic Republic just so that they could become a bigger threat. They used to think that they're fooling the Americans, and they actually were when it comes to Biden and Obama. But right now with Trump, negotiations is basically making the war easier, because all you're doing is basically remove, if they say yes to any of the terms of the agreement, is basically a removal of one of their deterrent capabilities before you actually have to take it out militarily. So it's actually, it makes sense to negotiate with them, because like, look at the things that are on the table other than recognizing the state of Israel, which is not a requirement that they would never accept. But we have the 60% enriched uranium, we have the ballistic missiles, we have support for the Islamic terrorists around the region, the proxies, and we have the killing of Iranians. These are the main things that are they want from the Islamic Republic. Right now, the Islamic Republic, the only thing that it could be willing to part with is the enriched uraniums, because even though that's a deterrent capability that they have a little bit, it's not as significant as the other things, right? Especially the ballistic missiles is the most important one, right? But imagine if Trump gets to, first of all, Trump comes in and says like, oh, we want all of them. But let's say like, oh, so the Islamic Republic is not going to agree to that, because there's no way they're going to agree to all of that. But then then the Islamic Republic says, well, Trump wants something more than a lot, but then he usually agrees to something a lot less. So Araghchi is now offering Trump to basically get the 60% enriched uraniums and put it in Turkey. If I was Trump, I would take that deal and still attack after. Because if the war happens, they might spread this enriched uranium so far and wide around the region. They might give some of them to Hashtashabi to take to Iraq, some of them to Zainabian to take to Pakistan, and some of them to Fatimian to take to Afghanistan. And it's going to be a nightmare to figure out where all of this is and basically trace them and make sure that they don't turn into eventually 90% enriched uranium somewhere and turn into a dirty bomb that one day they're going to be used in Europe or in Canada or United States, right? That's going to be a nightmare. So if I was Trump, I would like, let me see if I could get this out of their hands and then attack anyways, right? So that's why this negotiation makes sense, because it just makes the process of removing them a lot. Imagine if Trump is going to attack 2 months from now or 3 months from now. I don't know when he's going to attack. If that's the case, then in the meantime, why not see what I can get from them before I attack, right?
Very good point. 2 questions to follow up your points here. Number 1, if they were to make that deal for them to hand over some of their enriched uranium, what's to stop them from just enriching more in the meantime? Because according to most of the analyses, not all of the equipment for enriching the uranium was destroyed, and they're actually already working
Yep.
on new sites. And then number
Yep.
two, regarding the negotiations, how likely do you think it is that they actually come to that agreement or any agreement?
Well, the first question, I mean, they are working very hard on enriching uranium in their other new sites very deep underground. So they are actively moving in that direction. So that is happening, whether with like separate. So they are basically what Arakshi is trying to do is basically give up the 60% enriched uraniums that they had from the Fordo site, but to basically see if they could make the Americans not attack. But yeah, they are still enriching uranium, and they're working on enriching uranium in the other sites for sure. That's their only remaining deterring capability after all the proxies, and they use most of their ballistic. After losing so many of their rocket launchers and using a lot of their missiles on Israel in the 12-day war, they feel very naked. So they're never going to give up their enrichment of uranium. What was your second question?
Like, how likely
Oh,
do you think
what
that
are the
they
chances?
actually? Yeah,
Yeah. So to all of the terms, zero. To all of the terms, that would be their, like, if they give everything up, everything that they want in those terms, that would be their very last day, because then they are completely naked. Like then
yeah.
it's basically it would be so it's like a walk in the park for Israel and the Iranian people to then do regime change if they give up everything that the US is asking for. So there is no way they're going to agree to that. That would be their very last day if they do. Right? They're basically America is saying like, hey, we won't attack if you just give up all your deterrent capabilities. Well, if they give up all of their deterrent capabilities, then America doesn't even need to attack anymore. The Israelis and Iranians will be able to easily just behead them the very day after, right? But when it comes to some of they might be like, how about we just give you this? And again, it seems like the thing that they want to give is the 60% enriched uranium that they had left over from Fordo or other places, right? I mean, Jeffrey has some points to add to that. Do you want to respond to this? Yeah.
So Armin touched on a lot of things. The baseline, which is given the pseudo theological motives that underwrite the Mullah regime, and subsequent very little elasticity, meaning change of behavior, because they frame all their position gain or loss metaphysically. It's not like fighting the Soviet Union where you can hold Moscow hostage and all that other stuff. The probability of them ever giving up their pursuit of nuclear weapons or WMDs in general or aggression towards Israel and their neighbors is very low, because of the operational impact of revolutionary technologies and subsequent alternative means to provide or to obtain fissile material or alternative WMDs. Just when it comes to fissile material. So yeah, we hit Fort Al, Isfahan, Natanz. Donald did the right thing. Very much disrupted the Mullah regime's traditional approach towards enriching uranium. Tragically, that's not the only means that is available to the Mullah regime to obtain enriched uranium, whether it's getting turnkey systems from Pakistan, from the Chinese Communist Party, from Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state, or leveraging things like SILEX, which is laser-based enrichment. Again, it fits in a garage. It requires very little electricity. It has no UF6 outgassing. I mean, it's very hard to detect. What does it mean? It means even giving up the 60% uranium, given the elasticity of the Mullah regime's intent to obtain fissile material, their ability to leverage alternative means and get what they need, in other words, their breakout capability like that, is rapidly growing. Or maybe they go after alternative WMDs, like, their profile is different. They go after bioweapons, which is real easy to do. The point is the Mullah regime has to go. Witkoff's view of things, at least from my people, the people I know in the administration, different people have different ideas on how to best approach the world. Witkoff is a billionaire businessman, so he sees things as the way a businessman would, right? Like, what is it? Economic interdependence, and we could do a deal. This is not a person. Like the mullahs aren't people you can do a deal with where they're going to hold true to it. And Donald knows that, which is why Armin and a couple other people, what was it? Richard had mentioned like what President Trump thinks about dealing with actors that you can't trust, right? You never want to seem desperate to have a deal, and you always deal from strength and use leverage. You always try to keep the opposition guessing. There's a reason he does that.
So, Jeffrey, if they were to make that deal, do you think that the end result of it would simply be that more time is bought, the timeline just gets stretched a little bit?
Nope. The only thing that the Mueller regime is probably trying to do is buy whatever little time they can to try and cross the asymmetric deterrence threshold, like Ajita, defined as nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, and become kind of like the North Korea of the Middle East, as Armin had said.
I don't think that President Trump is going to be happy with that. I don't think he's going to go for that personally.
Yeah, I mean, he isn't, and Donald's not a dumb guy. Like,
No.
he understands who they are.
That concludes my questions. Thank you, guys, and Javid Shah, everybody.
I
Shah,
think
thank you.
Aaron wanted to add something really quickly because it's been 10 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So I just kind of wanted to just add on to that, just kind of to a point that was brought up earlier, power dynamics. A nuclear Iran in the Middle East means they are the dominant force in the region. They are a resourceful country. They are not in North Korea. In North Korea, they have nuclear arms, but at the end of the day, they are beholden to China. Iran would have the capability of being nuclear and not being beholden to anyone. Nuclear armed nations do not have to follow this European rules established order. Through the UN, that was proven when Putin toppled Crimea. So I kind of like to point out that a nuclear armed nation can do what they want and face less repercussions. And that's kind of just the point I'd like to just add on top of that, that I don't even think Arabic nations in the area, publicly, they say we don't want it to happen, but privately, I think they're like, we need this to happen, in my opinion.
The Arab countries in the region, well, not Qatar, but the rest of them, it seemed like they don't want a war unless it's going to completely top. They don't want to wound the Islamic Republic and let them then act like a wounded animal against them. They're basically either don't attack, or if you're going to attack, just finish the job. That's the position of most Arab countries around the Persian Gulf. Yeah, so let's go.
All right. Next, I would like to call up Tejal.
Yeah, what's up, guys? Hey, Suzanne, I'm sorry to hear about your friend. I hope that's pretty fucking rough. I hope it works out, for lack of a better thing, for whatever that's worth.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I was gonna say about Greenland. The thing about Greenland is that it is an essential strategic asset. The Chinese and the Russians, both the Chinese and the Russians, want to lay claim to it, and both of them want to put troops there. And if we don't do something about it, they will, because the Danes don't have the guts or the nuts to stop them. They're just a bunch of spineless Europeans at this point. So we got to take charge and do what we can to acquire it, because we can't let them put troops there. That would be a fucking disaster. So that's why we got to acquire Greenland, whether by buying it or.
Joel, if let's say you save someone from getting raped, do you have the right to rape them because you saved them from getting raped? So you might as well get to rape them. Do you think that's appropriate?
Whoa.
Samantha, I think making a place more safe and prosperous is not the same as raping.
Yeah,
his argument basically comes down to, well, if we prevent China and Russia from stealing it, then we should be allowed to steal it.
No. If raping is not stealing, if you make the people there better off and you don't steal their resources, you buy it, that's not stealing, okay? China and Russia will steal, you will basically be negotiating and trading with them. And if, again, usually when people get raped, Samantha, they're worse off. If you are under America's umbrella, you're better off. So it's a false analogy. But go on.
Well, what if they don't think they're better off and they don't want to be bought? and they don't agree to be bought.
I think that America has ways to convince them that this is a better idea, but then you're missing the point. I'm saying rape is not a good analogy here.
It's really not the same thing. The difference is we're not the CCP and we're not the Russians. And it's vital to our own interest and to our own people that we do not allow the Russians and the Chinese to attain Greenland, because that would be disastrous for us strategically. Having them in our hemisphere like that, that cannot be allowed, period, in the story. So we got to do what we got to do. And even if we did have to invade and take it, it would still be better than if Russians and Chinese took it.
You don't have to invade a country to protect it from Russia. You can protect it from Russia without owning it.
No, invade, first of all, is not the right term here. And also, given that it's under the territory of the Europeans are not in a position to protect Greenland from Russia and the Chinese. But go on, Joe.
No. It's going to come to that. I don't think we're going to have to invade, acquire it through other means. Maybe we can purchase it and make it worth their while. And that's what we need to do, and so that we can secure it and thus secure our hemisphere. It's as simple as that. It's just got to be done.
Yeah, European laws are so bureaucratic. Even if they allow Americans to do what they want in Greenland, going through all of that mess and also not making it certain and making it so that the Europeans could basically change their mind, that doesn't give enough security. And it's not going to be worth America's investment into providing so much military support in something that is not even theirs. So if you want to make it make sense for America, it has to be America's.
Yes. I think we can buy it and make it worth their while, and I think that's what we should do.
I don't know, man. It sounds like saying, if you want me to protect you from getting raped, have sex with me.
Samantha, I mean, like, you keep saying that, and we keep making the counterpoint, but it sounds like you're not listening.
That rhetoric, first off, is just ill in taste, and period. Like, that's not a rhetoric to use about this. It's like we're raping, burning villages and pillaging people. Like,
right.
We're bringing hospitals, we're bringing healthcare, we're bringing education, we're bringing literacy with that. I mean, that does not, that's the complete opposite of raping to me.
Exactly.
So
I'm pretty sure most people in Greenland are
I can respect your opinion
and they have better healthcare than
on
you do.
being against America using its military muscle to, you know, I can respect that opinion, but to compare it to rape, that's just crossing
it's an insult to rape victims. It's an insult to rape victims.
First off, it is, because America punishes soldiers who rape anyone, period. Like, they do hard time in Leavenworth for that. So I do kind of like to point that out. I don't think you actually have to worry about America taking over Greenland. I think Trump's just drawing a ideological line against China. And he's telling Europe to pick your side, pick your poison. You can go with China, who, when companies and media companies tried to speak up against Hong Kong and democracy, economically strong-arm them, or you can go with America, where you can come into our system, protest our own government. You can get Americans to protest our government for you, and we're raping you? That sounds like we're getting raped. We're getting screwed in that deal. Other people can come to our country and say, your country's screwed up. I'm going to protest you, and I'm going to go tell you to go protest your government to help my country. That sounds more like a backwards. Who's getting screwed in that deal? Answer me that question.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, it's not a one-to-one. It's not the same thing. We're trying to secure our interest. We're not interested in oppressing the people of Greenland. We need to get control one way or another in order to keep the Russians and the Chinese
from taking it without conquering it.
I think we can make it work their while. I think there's a way to do that. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's going to come down.
All right, Joe, that's good. That's good. Let's see what Jeffrey has to say.
So I'm going to jump in since we're playing hypotheticals. All right, Samantha. If the choice is either we conquer Greenland or China, like the Chinese Communist Party or Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state conquers Greenland, would you support us conquering Greenland to defend it against Putin and the Chi-Coms? Since we're playing hypotheticals. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Okay, but that's very reasonable, Samantha. And by the way, a lot of people are enjoying your laughter. They think it's very demonic, and they're enjoying that. So,
I agree.
But
I think it's time to move on.
Could I hop in there for one second on Greenland?
No, so I'm gonna pass it off to you, and you can say anything you want.
Go ahead, then.
Someone else
Go ahead,
speaking?
Haiti.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
you. It's you.
Samantha. Yeah, it's really a choice, like Jeffrey said, between China and the United States. But it's also, do you want to become a battlefield? And this has happened before. Denmark owned what is now the U.S. Virgin Islands. And for 50 years, the United States tried to buy it, saying, look, this is in our region and we're going to have to defend it. And, if push comes to shove, if you can't defend it, we will. And what happened was Denmark said no, and I don't know how the islanders felt about it, but usually when people think that they have leverage, they will use it. Well, what happened was World War I broke out, and then it became a real thing, a real threat that they would end up under Germany. And the United States basically said, okay, make your choice. We either buy it or we invade it, but we're not allowing it to remain as it is. And, if I were an islander living on the Virgin Islands, I'd much rather not become a battlefield in a major global conflagration. And that's really the choice. We're trying to make it now instead of waiting for the war to break out. And then that region becomes the battlefield. And then no one has any choice.
All of Europe. Why stop at Greenland? Why don't we just take over all Europe?
Well, the thing is, Denmark was neutral, which would have meant Denmark would have been dragged into World War I because their territory would have been invaded, and they wanted to remain neutral. And in a strategic location, you're not going to remain neutral. One side or the other is going to take you over. They're not going to respect your border at that point. And so that's really the situation you're looking at.
Can I bring up a very relevant fact to what you're saying?
Sure.
So a lot of people don't realize this because if you're not a U.S. state, if you're like one of our territories, we actually not only paid you, but we're also providing like free health care. And I kind of take offense to that because of a lot of Americans want free health care and our colonial subjects get it. So just want to add that to it, that it's not a free of charge relationship we have with these territories.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Can I also add something real quick, if you don't mind? A little history lesson.
Really quick.
In World War II, when Hitler invaded Denmark, they surrendered to Hitler in a matter of hours. So we basically had to defend Greenland de facto.
Exactly.
We gave Greenland back. So I don't know if that counts for anything. We also gave the Philippines back.
Well, and Greenland's just lucky that the kind of weaponry that was available at World War II made Greenland not as important. That same situation is not true today.
All right, so guys, before we move to the next point, I just wanted to add one thing regarding America could defend Greenland even if Greenland was not part of America and just remains part of the European Union. The privilege that the Europeans think that they have, that America should continue protecting them even though they're not part of America. Like, look at the level of expectation. I mean, the audacity. This is why European countries have turned into leeches of the New World Order instead of being a contributing factor militarily to bringing global security. They're like, oh, we're just going to stand by and America will just come protect us whenever they need to so that we could spend our money on, welfare and free healthcare and free education. We don't need to contribute to the military because the Americans will never come and stop defending us. So the idea that China and Russia might come take Greenland and America, we have the expectation of America to just show up and defend us without this being American territory is actually, I think the audacity of that expectation is ridiculous.
I know Europeans who will admit that they are entitled.
Right.
They'll be like, well, yeah, if we can free ride, if we can be a freeloader, why wouldn't we be a freeloader? I'm like, well, damn, well, then don't get surprised when the gravy train stops. And then you're caught holding the bag because y'all don't want to put anything into your own defense. Like, you reap what you sow.
Okay, yeah, no, I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that on the level of, where would it hurt the US the least in Europe if Russia invaded? And maybe we should stop helping that group.
And to be fair, I know a lot of Europeans that find it unjustifiable. They're like, yeah, this is wrong. We do need to invest in like they take accountability for it is what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to make it seem like all Europeans like are just freeloaders. Like a lot of people are taking accountability, but they're like, this is what our elites have led us to, essentially.
So basically, if you think about it, then, hold on, just one more point. Think about it. Like Greenland is too close to America for America not to defend it, but for it to make sense defending it, it needs to be part of America instead of another gift to the Europeans with the American taxpayer defending another European territory. It would not make sense for America to defend it unless this is American territory. This is why Greenland needs to be America. Oh, Aaron, your connection is bad.
I do like to point out about Europe. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
So your connection is bad now. Okay, go on. Keep it short,
I
though.
just got dropped. God dang it.
Okay, I'm gonna mute him. Yes, I'm gonna mute him. All right. So, Danny?
That's it for Heidi. In that case, I will go on to Francesco.
I wanted to talk about the Iran and USA negotiations. I mean, I will start with that and then I will move to the Greenland thing. But yeah, I think the United States needs to have the moral high ground, and part of the negotiation is to give like almost impossible deal to accept, or let them accept the deal and then attack them when they don't stand by it. Plus, it's a good occasion to gather intelligence to see what happens, who is supporting and with what, and where are the planes coming from and what they're carrying and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see the response from the other adversaries, I think, and also simply to buy time and preparedness. What really, I think, settled my mind is that Al-Udeid base has been partially evacuated. You don't do that generally if you don't intend to strike, right? If you just want to gain leverage, you just put your fleet there and say, okay, I will bomb you to smithereens, right? But the fact that they're preparing for counterattacks, it tells me that there is a bit of intention to strike. I mean, you don't gather so much force just to get a good deal. But the other topic of NATO, leeching, and it's true that a lot of European countries did not meet the percentage quota on NATO, and I'm very glad that we are increasing the defense spending, because the world now is a different place than before the invasion of Ukraine. So, I mean, that low expectation was partially due to a relatively peaceful time. And I also would like to remind everybody that the Twin Towers were Americans. When they fell down, most of the NATO members helped in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the collective money that the allies spent in that war is more or less what the USA. Of course, it's very hard to do cumulative measures and adding all those contributions, but what the USA spent on Ukraine, more or less, it's on the order of the hundreds of billions of dollars. So, and that's against the some people with the Kalashnikov and sandals, is not against Russia, which is a more threatening adversary for the USA. So it is true that the world peace order is based on the strength of the USA, but the world was different before the invasion of Ukraine. And the 2% was reasonable because they didn't have real threats like France, Germany. There would not be any risk of military invasion. Most of the invasion now that's done in Western European countries through immigration is not military. The three hot places are Greece and Turkey, the Balkans with Serbia. I don't know where the tanks from Hungary will go if against Russia or with Russia. I'm not sure about that. I think I'm not settled on that, at least. And of course, the border with Russia. That's the hottest part in like a kinetic conflict in Europe, and now the Arctic. So that's what I wanted to say. That there are military cooperation that
So,
happened for
I-
20 years and plus. Yeah.
So I just before we move to the next person, I just want to quickly say that I know we're measuring Europe's contribution as a percentage. The problem is that Europe's economy relative to America's economy is shrinking, in the past decade. So even if they maintain a percentage of their GDP, their relative contribution to America is becoming lower every year because America's economy is much bigger than Europeans deciding to become welfare states and slowing down their economy. And this whole net zero environmental nonsense makes them, even if you have a good percentage of their GDP being contributed to their military, still going to be more insignificant because their entire economies are weaker compared to the growth of the US economy. So we have to also take that into account.
I think Aaron wanted to add something.
Yeah, they are very resource poor, especially when it comes to modern resources. And what I mean by that is the hard resources, the metal in the ground, and all the technology we use. So when we talk about how big an economy is, remember what supports that economy. And without hard resources that are extracted, that economy is non-existent. And I have a list of it. I'll add it to the chat when I get stopped here, if we're still going. So you can take a look at it on what Europe lacks natural resource wise, energy, metals, everything. So they got to kind of respect their position that they rely on trade networks in the world to even have an economy.